Hey, welcome on in, you rascals, and Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, you're dead to me. Nah, I'm just kidding, everybody. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If not, thanks for stopping by. I guess at least hit that like button. That'd be kind of cool. But anyway, let's get to it, everybody. So I was watching today the Netflix documentary Court of Gold. Now, I skipped around because on the Netflix menu, there is one that has Bam Adebayo on the cover. And it's like Bam Adebayo, and it gives a little bit of his journey to the NBA. And I was like, that's Goosey's galore. I'm going to check that out. Even better than I imagined, dude. I mean, like, it was Goosey's on top of Goosey's. First of all, let me set the scene, okay? Not only are you getting, like, the thoughts of some of the game's greats, you know, Dwayne Wade, Grant Hill. Grant Hill. He was like, Bam Adebayo, a superstar, an all-star. He can guard anyone on earth. Literally, he can guard anybody. And, oh, by the way, goes out there and gives you 20 and 10. Maybe the most underrated player in the NBA. And I was like, whew. Grant Hill, speak sweet nothings to me. Steve Kerr, too. Steve Kerr was pouring the praise on Bam Adebayo. It was like he has no bad days, all good days, comes in there, high fives everybody. And I was just like, that's good. Oh, if you're a Heat fan and you haven't checked out. Now, I then go into the episode. There's a little feature on, to be honest with you, the majority of the episode was not about Bam. It was, it was very much the majority was about Team France. And man, they hate Evan Fournier. The coach and him were beefing. So I'm very much looking forward to it. It was a very enjoyable documentary, but also very cool because you get the story of Bam, for those who don't know, growing up in North Carolina with his mother in a trailer, talking about growing up. And then they have Bam's mom mic'd up for his game against South Sudan where he lit them up like a Christmas tree. It was really great. I recommend it. Check it on out if you haven't already. It was Goosey's on top of it. And you get D Wade in there. There's a ton of D Wade, obviously throwing the flowers at Bam. But I think it's kind of cool because we hear the same people over and over and over about it. And it is kind of cool to get an outside perspective. I'm looking forward. I'm going to reverse it, and I'm going to watch all of it because I really was captivated. I was like, oh, this is good. I mean, the battles between Canada and France was quite captivating. It really, really was. And, Team Canada ends up losing. They go to SGA in the locker room. I was like, this is really good. Now, that coach of theirs, whining about the foul calls, and I understand. He probably thought that there was French corruption going on there in that game. But I just thought it was done really, really well. Like, in comparison to starting five, which to me, maybe it was like the Heat in me, but like the Heat fan in me, like the only part I enjoyed was the Jimmy part, or I thought was interesting. Obviously, there was a lot of heartbreak in the Jimmy parts too, but the Ant stuff was cool. Tatum, even LeBron. He had his moments, but I just thought that like it was underwhelming, that show. I mean, you want to talk about like the ways it could have gone and the ways that it did. I just thought that nobody gave you anything other than Butler from just an interest off the court standpoint. The old side quests, if you will. But speaking of side quests, this was interesting to me. So, Morant is an interesting topic because today it was thrown out there, and I love this. This is silly times, but Howard Beck, longtime NBA reporter, works for The Ringer, Bill Simmons' entity. Longtime NBA reporter, though. Bleacher Report. Does he work for the New York Times? Like, he's been covering the NBA forever. Very respected voice, right? And I gotta say, there's a weird way where this whole Jimmy Butler thing may actually work out in the Heat's favor to shake a star the Heat's way. You may say, Tobes, you're doing the thing. And I have to tell you, no, I'm not. Look, I'm going to put the whale away here for a second, okay? Just now, I did react like this on the radio show today.
Morant, Durant.
We were just having fun, baby. But look, in reality, Howard Beck goes on his podcast today, and he's like, I'll tell you who the guy is that everybody, that this one executive was saying, take a little peeky poo at, a little looky-loo. Ja Morant could be on the way out skis in Memphis. And it's enough to make you go, very interesting. Ja Morant, who I never thought the Memphis Grizzlies would part with, because he just seems like the entity of their franchise, had led them to heights, obviously had gotten into trouble with the whole gun stuff and the social media chicanery that followed suit. But I just had a hard time believing that this would be the case. But one has to wonder for Ja Morant. All of these guys do take a look of their situations. They take a look, and they're like, maybe they didn't like the way that a certain situation was handled behind the scenes. Maybe the franchise is more fed up than we know. Look at the Luka thing. Who would have seen that coming? And that's the thing. It does feel like the Luka thing is certainly shaken up because it does feel like everything's on the table. But the reason the Jimmy thing is interesting to me is Jimmy was very vocal about Jimmy's camp was very vocal about not wanting to go to Memphis. Now, I don't particularly know if that has to do with the city of Memphis, though it doesn't seem like it's that desirable of a place to live. I would have figured if there was any star that would have dug it, it would have been Jimmy Butler. Ties to Justin Timberlake, the love of country music, hop, skip, and a jump away from the capital of country music. He's working on a country album. I thought there would have been a lot of things that would have made sense for that team and bringing him in. But he scoffed at it, and it could have been two things. Could have been the town, because a lot of people don't like to play in Memphis. And the other thing was they appeared like they wanted to do a rental. They didn't want to invest in their star. And if your face of the franchise kind of looks at it and is like, wait a minute, we need to break through here to win a championship, and you guys are going on the cheap skis with this particular move. We could finally get somebody who is of Jimmy Butler's caliber. It's really worked out with the Golden State Warriors, and you guys didn't want to pull the trigger. So maybe the Grizzlies face of the franchise looks at that, doesn't take too kindly to it, and is like starting to get a little bit antsy and looking around. And then, maybe we have a little bit of a De'Aaron Fox Sabonis situation. They're looking at it. Jaren Jackson's been the all-star. Jaren Jackson's been the guy who's been there. Jaren Jackson is getting all the flowers. Jaren Jackson doesn't seem to be getting into trouble. Jaren Jackson's dad doesn't beef with Shannon Sharp on the court side. I don't know, dude. I'm throwing things out there to figure out why all of a sudden the man who embodies the Grizzlies all of a sudden is like thinking, could he bolt? Could he be available? Who knows? But obviously, when somebody of Ja's caliber comes into the fold, you gotta wonder, can the Heat get into the game for that? And I think that we should dub this the summer of Morant Durant 2025, dude. Pat Riley sharpens the harpoons, and he goes looking for Morant Durant in a situation. And as Jimmy Butler also, the Suns thing kind of blew up in their face. Now all of a sudden, Kevin Durant is all of a sudden open and looking to possibly look at my phone. My bat signal's going. Kevin Durant is all of a sudden was open to coming to the Miami Heat. One has to wonder, could all of a sudden we look around? Now, somebody did suggest to me on Twitter, what about a Anthony Edwards, Ja Morant, Kevin Durant trifecta? Morant, Durant, and just Ant. I've dubbed this the Ant Farm. I don't know if the Ant Farm is possible for the Miami Heat. But I don't know what Kevin Durant's going to go for the Suns. I know that their owner's going to throw, is going to try and get a haul for him, but he is the age that he is at. He is unhappy, and there's going to be places where people aren't going to want to surly Kevin Durant. He's got a little bit of the Jimmy to him in that. And so What locations is he going to be privy to? Well, we know one of them. Do we not? And then the Morant thing, Morant's obviously going to take a haul, but maybe the Heat, hey, listen, maybe we got a twisted ankle and all the we get 2 picks possibly this upcoming draft. Who knows? Who knows what the war chest is going to look like for the Miami Heat? All I'm saying is I looked at that situation. I was like, all right. Very interesting that all of a sudden there could be more whales potentially out there than one thought. And that's the interesting thing right now is the Heat wanted to keep themselves flexible. Obviously, they're going into a year where, they're still going to have Terry on the books. They got Duncan, and the summer of 26 is really where a lot of things free up for them. But I was like, Morant. Now, there are some things with Morant that are obviously a concern, right? Not just the court stuff, but super hyper athletic guard, undersized, throws his neck at the rim. Dude misses a lot of games. And we got to realize with the Heat, is that something that they would chase? Would they chase for something like that to be, their next face of the franchise? I think in a lot of ways it's been an interesting topic, right, over the last couple of days where people have talked about who's going to be the next face of the league post LeBron James. LeBron James out of it. Anthony Edwards kind of deferred off of it, and he was like, which is interesting because last year he was doing Today's Show interviews about being the heir to Michael Jordan, and now all of a sudden he goes, oh no, Wembanyama is the face of the league. But at one point a couple of years ago, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Ja Morant, and I do think it's interesting. You look at like the Morant Zion class where it looked like, those guys are going to be the faces of the league, and now you're wondering like, all right, what is their future going to obviously Zion's not going to finish with the Pels. Do the Heat get in that game for him? I don't know. I've told you I've been intrigued by it just because of the talent. But certainly we're at a spot right now where I think for the Heat franchise, all things are now on the table. Now that the Jimmy Butler thing is behind them and they're in this spot where they have more assets to play with, what direction do they want to pick? Because we saw with this Durant buzz, whatever happened there at the trade deadline, that, all right, the Heat weren't in a spot at that moment where they wanted to go all in. But I don't imagine the Miami Heat going into a spot where they're going to be like, we're going to go completely in the toilet, especially with some picks that they owe out there and whatnot. I can't imagine that being the case. So there is going to have to be a pivot at some point that is the person they look at and is like, that's the guy that we want to bring in there. Is that Ja Morant? I don't know. But it certainly was one of those where it was like, that would kind of be fun. That would be fun. I would like if we're gonna go full pivot on things, like who wouldn't be a little intrigued by it? Maybe it's not the most responsible thing to do in the world based on, small guard, athletic. Is that gonna hold up? But it would be fun.